Proposition 7 conforms California daylight savings time to federal law. Allows legislature to change daylight savings time period. Legislative statute.
Plain language, allow California's legislature to control California's daylight savings time schedule with a 2/3 vote.
Now, normally this is where I would give you background information on this and that and how the elements of the proposition work, but come on, we all know what daylight savings time is, so can we skip it?
Can we skip that part, baby? In our life.
Great, thanks. Just know that America's time zones are regulated by the federal government. States can choose not to adopt daylight savings time, but they cannot choose to stay on daylight savings time all year long. California voted to adopt daylight savings time in 1949, and any further change to our time system has to be voted on by us. Long story short, the federal government establishes the time zones in the U.S. California voted to adopt daylight savings time along with every other state except Hawaii and Arizona. It takes a state vote to make changes to this. What does it do? Proposition 7 allows the legislature with a 2/3 vote to change daylight savings time, such as remaining on daylight savings time all year round, as long as the change is allowed under federal law. Until any such change, California would maintain the current daylight savings time even if Prop 7 passes. The fiscal impact of Prop 7 would be nothing in theory. This proposition does not make any changes to our daylight savings time schedule. It just makes it possible for the legislature to make changes if they so vote. But if Prop 7 passes and the legislature votes to adopt year-round daylight savings time, sunrises and sunsets would occur 1 hour later between March and November, and the legislative analyst anticipates that this would result in changes in the lighting, heating, and cooling habits of Californians. And also there would be less disruption in the sleeping patterns of Californians when the daylight savings time happens, thereby reducing the accompanying maladies, including lower worker productivity and exhaustion-related accidents. Greedy special interest and Wall Street bankers don't want you to support The Daryl Johnson Show. Don't let their loopholes keep you from donating at PayPal and Patreon. We need your help to keep videos like this coming. If you don't support The Daryl Johnson Show at the links below, we will see more homeless in the streets and children without health care. From Yes on Prop 7. What does it cost us to change our clocks twice a year? Here are some facts to consider. University Medical Studies in 2012 found that the risk of heart attacks increases by 10% in the 2 days following a time change. In 2016, further research revealed that stroke risks increase 8% when we change our clocks. For cancer patients, the stroke risk increased 25%, and for people over 65, the risk goes up to 20%. All because we disrupt sleep patterns. Every parent knows what it means when our children's sleep patterns are disrupted twice a year. Now consider money. Changing our clocks twice a year increases our use of electricity 4% in many parts of the world. It increases the amount of fuel we use in our cars and comes with a cost of $434 million. That's money we can save. Changing our clocks doesn't change when the sun rises or sets. Nature does that. Summer days will always be longer, winter days will stay shorter. Since 2000, 14 countries have stopped changing their clocks, and now 68% of all countries don't do it. They allow nature to determine time, not their governments, lowering health risk, reducing energy consumption, saving money. A yes vote on Prop 7 allows Californians to consider making daylight savings time or standard time our year-round time, changing things that are more important than changing our clocks. Prop 7 will require a 2/3 vote of the legislature before any final decisions are made. Traffic accidents and workplace injuries increase significantly after we change our clocks. Not to mention, our economy takes a $434 million hit in lost productivity when our clocks are set an hour forward and back every year. Californians can unwind the dangerous time switch by voting yes on Prop 7. From No on Prop 7. Please vote no on Prop 7. Prop 7 will result in California switching to permanent daylight savings time. We've tried this before and it was a disaster. In 1974, an energy crisis led President Nixon to declare emergency full-time daylight savings time. It was supposed to last 16 months but was stopped after 10 months because people hated the fact that in the morning the sun rose too late. Daylight savings time does not create more hours of daylight, it just changes when those daylight hours occur. If you live in Anaheim, the sun will rise at 6:55 a.m. on Christmas morning this year. With daylight savings time, it would be 7:55 a.m. We have daylight savings time in the summer so that it is light when we get home from work, and we switch to standard time in the winter so it's light in the morning. What will it mean to have permanent daylight savings time? The sun will rise 1 hour later than if we were on standard time. If you live in Eureka or Susanville, it would still be dark at 8 a.m. on New Year's Day. If you live in Los Angeles or 29 Palms, the sun won't rise until 7:30 a.m. or later from November to February. Those of you who like to wake up with the sun, you'll wake up in the dark. You'll get your family ready for the day in the dark. Your kids will be walking to school or waiting for the school bus before the sun rises. For those of you who like to get your exercise or attend religious services before work, you'll be doing it in darkness. Some make the argument that daylight savings time saves us energy or makes us safer, but there's no scientific evidence of that. It's just a question of convenience. We now have daylight savings time in the summer, so we can have extra light in the evening when we can enjoy it, rather than having the daylight between 5 and 6 in the morning when we prefer it's dark. And then in the winter, we switch back to standard time, so it's not so dark in the morning. Being on permanent daylight savings time will put us out of sync with our neighbors. While we'll always have the same time as Arizona, part of the year we'll have the same time as the other mountain time states, and the rest of the year we'll be in line with Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and Mexico. Yes, it's a minor inconvenience when we spring ahead and we lose that hour, even though it's so great to get that extra hour when we fall back. But avoiding these transitions is not worth the confusion with the other states and the months of dark mornings we'll have to endure with permanent daylight savings time. Proposition 7 is one of the most interesting propositions, maybe the most interesting proposition on the ballot for me this year, but at the same time, I really don't care about the outcome. Keep daylight savings time, abolish it, make it year-round. I just can't find a reason to have a strong preference. There's one single thing that gives me pause, and that's the fact that we'll be in this weird anomaly situation in the country where we're on a different time than Washington and Oregon for part of the year, and Colorado and Utah for part of the year. Those of us who make out-of-state phone calls frequently will have to constantly be trying to remember where we are in relation to the rest of the country, and that does sound annoying, but beyond that, I'm sure I'll enjoy whatever all you beautiful Californians choose, so have at it. If you vote yes on Prop 7, you are voting to give the California Legislature the power to control our daylight savings schedule. If you vote no on Prop 7, you are not doing that. The Daryl Johnson Show says whatever on Prop 7.